guys, I'm Annie Designs and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Something I try to do every year on my channel around this time of year is do an annual Q&A, where I ask you guys for questions on 3 platforms at minimum, which is my Facebook page, Instagram questions, as well as on my community tab here on YouTube. So I asked the questions, and I gotta say, this year you guys came in clutch. I got some really good questions, and I'm actually really looking forward to answering a bunch of these. So let's get right into it. First, we'll do the questions that came from my Facebook page. The first question there is, what's been your favorite part so far of remaking your Snow White cosplay? For those who don't know, I am remaking Snow White from Mirror Mirror, a cosplay I made when I was 18 years old, and I'm now remaking it now that I have a little bit more skills and knowledge in costume making. At this point of recording, I am currently working on the skirts, but I have to say, so far I've been really enjoying making all the foundation garments for this costume. On the original, I did not make any foundation garments that are at least not proper ones. They collapsed, they did not last. Learning how to make proper foundation garments has honestly been a real joy. I've been really enjoying like every aspect of remaking this costume, honestly. It's just been insanely satisfying and really enjoyable. And it's the first costume I can really say I've really enjoyed almost every single step of everything. The next question is there anything specific you want to try that's new to you next year? Something new that I will be trying out actually this year is I want to try out soldering for the crown for Snow White, actually, coincidentally. I've seen a few tutorials on soldering together really gorgeous tiaras and using Swarovski crystals to make them as well, and it turns out my mother actually knows a little bit of things about soldering and has all the tools for it already. So I'm really hoping that she can maybe teach me how to do that. Maybe her and I, it's something we can do together, which is kind of nice, kind of like a throwback to how she used to help me with little bits and pieces or teach me new things to make some of my costumes. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to trying out soldering for the first time, and hopefully, I'm hoping it works out, because there's other methods I could use if the soldering doesn't end up to the level I want it or anything like that, but I am really looking forward to trying that out. The last question from my Facebook page, in what way do you think the pandemic has changed the cosplay community? To be completely honest, this could be an entire video all on its own, because I think the pandemic has changed the cosplay community in a lot of ways. I think one of the biggest ways though is online interactions, because honestly it's grown since the pandemic started. A lot of people started cosplaying. I think TikTok's definitely to blame for that, and also other things where people are just picking up a bunch of new hobbies during the pandemic because of all the isolation time. So I think it's grown a lot, and I think online presences have grown a lot, and the creativity from that has really exploded. I also think people have learned a lot about their own self-pacing a lot, and without the deadlines of conventions around, I mean, people are still always going to come crunch a bit, but I think a lot of people have learned about how fast they create things and to create things at paces that are healthier for their own mental health. This next question comes from my YouTube community page. Have you ever had to draft your own pattern from scratch? If so, is it easier or harder than modifying an already made pattern? So I've shown several examples before on my channel, in much older videos now, of me drafting things from scratch. I do this a lot, and it's just a personal preference of mine, but I do really enjoy drafting my own patterns from scratch. I also did that for my Snow White cosplay, which is currently in progress, so you'll get to see those patterns that I made as well. I did study in fashion and costume, where we did actually have to take classes on this, and if you ever want to see some resources and such, I do a panel actually on making your own patterns for cosplay. But in said panel, I also talk about modifying patterns, because that's usually the starter way of getting into pattern drafting. I personally like drafting everything from scratch because I find that actually a little easier for myself, because if you're modifying already made patterns, you're having to work around all sorts of different things. Style lines, style details, all these things that exclude. When you pattern draft from scratch, you just build up from a very basic base. But if you're trying to learn pattern drafting, it's easier to start off by modifying patterns first, so you have a true understanding of how they work. Is it easier to do one or the other? It depends on what you're drafting. Now for some Instagram questions. What advice do you have for improving your cosplays? And with that question, how do you figure out the right poses to do? So to address the first one first. Honestly, the best thing to do to improve your cosplays is to learn proper finishing techniques. Once you learn how to finish off your costumes, press them nicely, things like that, everything else will start to look better. If you start finishing your cosplays with having a binding around the seam or serging the ends of your seams, they won't fray, they won't fall apart. They'll look better and they'll function better as garments as well. And for the second question on this one, how do I figure out which poses to do? Well, a little trial and error usually. I oftentimes like to have a prop or something I can work with. So if I have a prop, it's easy to pose with because it gives me something to interact with. And having something to interact with makes things a ton easier to figure out, especially if there's more than one way to pose with it. I also will oftentimes look up many reference images of the characters ahead of time, so I have ideas before going into a photo shoot situation. Next question, any technique or skill you'd wish you'd learned earlier and how it could have helped you to know? Something that I wish I learned a ton earlier is how to do wig styling. Because when I was early on in my cosplay career as a young teen, I was learning a ton about sewing stuff and basic crafting stuff because my mom was a seamstress and she was really good at crafting and thinking outside the box. But something that she never had experience with, so therefore I had no experience with, was wigs. And wig styling tips and such were still really new at the time, so it's okay that I didn't delve into it earlier, but I was at a loss with wigs for such a long time, and I feel like if I had gotten into them earlier, right now I would be so much more confident in my wig styling. I've gotten better with it, but there's still so much more I need to learn and improve on. I need to get me some Cowboy Crunchies books, like today. The next question, what is your biggest success this year? Now see, this is kind of a hard question because I haven't been to any cons and it's not like I've been in any competitions this year. But I will say I think that one of my successes is a very personal one in the sense of I have been working on a very large costume build since January of this year, so about a year now, and I'm sure it's going to take me about a year and a few months to reach completion. That to me is a major success. The fact that I haven't dropped it, the fact that I've been enjoying it every step of the way as much as I have, honestly, that feels kind of great. Next question, and this is an important one. How do you deal with a cosplay burnout? Now, I haven't had that many cosplay burnouts because I'm usually very good at pacing myself within working on cosplay and other cosplay content. But I have experienced a few, and luckily, because of the pandemic, I haven't experienced one recently. But, it's a big but, I have dealt with them. The worst one I ever had was in 2018. I was so busy that summer, I was between 2 different school programs, and I did a major build along with Symphony and Silk that summer, and it was a lot, especially because I was working full-time at my summer job, too. So you can say by the time September rolled around, I was pretty burnt out. What I had to do was take a break from cosplay completely, which to some people, if they're doing this as a career or something, that could be really kind of impossible to do. But even taking a break from a bigger project and doing a smaller one, a break can really do absolute wonders and refreshen your motivation to work in cosplay or on cosplay. I definitely think it's really important to take breaks in cosplay because if you do too much, too fast a pace, you're gonna feel tired, you're gonna not enjoy it as much. And the point of cosplay is to enjoy it. And for our final question today, it's a whopper, it's a big one. What is my favorite Zelda game? You might think you know the answer because, I mean, I am literally wearing a Majora's Mask shirt as we speak, but it's a bit more complicated than just saying one game or the other because I think it's a tie, honestly. I usually have a really hard time deciding between The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Ocarina of Time I have a little bit more nostalgia for because I played it first. I didn't get to play Majora's Mask until I was a little bit older, in my teens, but I really love both of them for completely different reasons, but also for the same reasons. So I'm gonna have to say The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. They're just iconic and I love them so much. So thank you guys all for sending me these fantastic questions. They are super interesting to discuss. We'll see you guys at next year's cosplay Q&A. Also coming up soon will be my cosplay year in review, another annual video that I do to kind of summarize what I did this year in the cosplay front. So thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys again soon. See you guys later.